Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Assisted Living at its Best. Before we launch into the presentation, I just want to talk about the buttons at the bottom of your screen. If you have a question during this presentation, if you click on the Q&A button down at the bottom, you can type your question in and we will answer those at the end of the presentation. So my name is Amy Vanderploeg. I'm the Director of Sales for Porter Hills Village and Cook Valley Estates. And the purpose of our presentation today is to talk with you about assisted living at Porter Hills and what that looks like during COVID and everything else. We've been doing virtual events all summer and into the fall and have had very good response with that. So we appreciate you joining us today and being part of this virtual time together. I want to talk first about Porter Hills for those of you who might be unfamiliar with us as a community. Porter Hills has been serving seniors for 50 years. Actually, this year is our 50th anniversary. We are a not-for-profit organization and we offer the full continuum of care, meaning we offer independent living, assisted living, memory care, rehab services, and skilled nursing. And of course, today we're going to focus on the assisted living piece of that. We have 9 communities in West Michigan. And recently, in the past year or so, we affiliated with United Methodist Retirement Communities of Southeastern Michigan. And that has made us, as a combined organization, the 4th largest not-for-profit organization in Michigan. So we're happy today to discuss, as I said, assisted living, and we have 2 presenters today, Caitlin Davis, who is our transition coordinator, and Mariah Voss, who is the manager for the assisted living neighborhood. And both of them are going to take it from here and discuss what assisted living looks like and help you as families and loved ones really figure out, how and when do you start having this conversation. So Caitlin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin Davis. I am the transitions coordinator here at Porter Hills, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. So I wanted to give a picture of what my role is here with our residents. My support and services are a wonderful added benefit of being a life lease resident here at Porter Hills. I work primarily with our enhanced independent living residents and with our independent living residents. And I think a good big picture explanation of what my role here at Porter Hills is that I am an advocate for our residents and their families when they're needing assistance navigating some very confusing medical systems, or potentially talking about starting and increasing care for their loved one or for themselves. So I typically try to break down my role into 2 big areas. The first area being the medical case management piece, and the second area being coordinating an increase in support and or care for our residents here at Porter Hills. So medical case management, that could look like a few different things for our residents. It could look like assistance with making arrangements for upcoming procedures. It could look like assistance with pre-surgery things or post-surgery things, helping residents make sure that they have everything in order or everything that they need when they return home from the hospital or for a procedure, making sure that they have the level of care that they need afterwards. It could look like understanding a new diagnosis or help understanding a new medication, and me coordinating those types of conversations with them and their medical professionals, because let's face it, medical things are confusing for all of us. And sometimes you just need an extra help or an extra hand to navigate through that and to help communication with your medical professionals. It also could look like setting up medical care for you. So maybe you got a physical therapy referral or an occupational therapy referral from your doctor, and you're really not quite sure what to do with that referral. Well, that's when I could step in and help make sure that you are referred to the right place that meets your individualized needs. And so the other part of my role then being the coordinating of maybe an increase of support or care for your loved ones. So a lot of our residents come to Porter Hills specifically because we have an assurance of that continuum of care that Amy just touched on earlier, meaning that they know Porter Hills can care for them, or Porter Hills can care for your loved one from the day that they arrive and move in until the day that they pass. It's a really special thing that we offer to our residents here. And so you might need assistance at some point with navigating what options your loved one has within that continuum, whether it's staying at home or whether it's moving to our next level of care here at Porter Hills. So let's say that you are starting to have some concerns about your loved one and you're thinking to yourself, okay, is now a good time to connect with Caitlin about what our options are at Porter Hills? Well, maybe some things that you are starting to notice or you're starting to recognize with your loved one are outdated food in the refrigerator. We have this cute little picture of someone tossing away a ton of food, but maybe that's something that you're starting to notice with your mom or dad or loved one, that they're letting things expire and they didn't maybe used to do that before, or typically they were on top of those things. Maybe you're starting to notice changes in their personal hygiene, and at one point they were showering regularly or had their hair combed on a daily basis or had fresh clothes on, and you're just starting to notice that they're really not keeping up on those things. Maybe you're starting to notice that they're forgetting appointments, whether that's their own medical appointments, or maybe they're just forgetting dates for family things, or they're not showing up when you think they're going to be showing up. Maybe it looks like finances and your loved one starts to fall behind on paying their bills, and maybe for the most part they were always on time with those things or up to date with payments, or they had a really strong understanding of their finances, but maybe you're starting to see that that's not the case anymore. Maybe you're starting to see increased ER visits. Maybe you're starting to see some falls and your loved one is not necessarily remembering how they fell or why they fell, or what was happening when they fell. Maybe you're starting to see that their pills are in disarray. This is a huge one that I see with a lot of our residents here, is just kind of starting to get lax on their medications, or their pill box is a little bit messed up and they don't have the right pills in the right day box, or they're not taking their pills on a regular basis anymore. Maybe those are some of the things that you're starting to see. And so then you might, if you're seeing those things, you might start to ask yourself, okay, what now? What do I do for my loved one to make sure that they have the level of care that they need? And what are their options? What are my options? What are our options? And so that would be a really good point to connect with me so that I can come and meet with you and your loved one to talk about what those options look like, both at home, or along our continuum of care. So we really have, this outlines 3 of our big options that you and your loved one may have. One of those being that your loved one could potentially continue to stay independent where they're living now, and you could anticipate bringing in supportive services. Another option being that they could decide, or you could decide, that they are going to start cohabitating with you. So maybe they decide that they're going to move in with one of their kids or one of their family members that has the capacity to care for them. Or maybe you're starting to realize that now is the time to move along Porter Hills continuum of care, and you'd like to know more about options that we offer for assisted living, which we call catered living. So there are some options within each of those options. When you talk about hiring in home assistance for your loved one to stay where they are right now, that could look like a few different things. It could look like hiring in some different agencies to help support your loved one. Some of those agencies might be something like Peace at Home, or Elders Helpers, or Seniors Helping Seniors. And that way your loved one would stay where they are and someone would come to them to help support them. In my experience, I have seen some challenges with that, and I want to identify those to you. Sometimes bringing in a private duty home care can be pretty limited in scope. So they might not be able to do the extent of care or provide the extent of care that your loved one may need in the home. I also find that these types of home care services are pretty scheduled. So if mom or dad or your loved one is needing ongoing help throughout the day, say for example, they are needing some assistance with using the restroom, that's something that you really can't schedule. That's something that you can't anticipate. Okay, I'll have, a private duty home care aide for 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours at night, and that should be enough. Well, there are things that happen in between that amount of time that, your loved one might need help during that time when someone's not there. There are also financial implications. So I've seen that depending on the level of care that is coming into the home, it can sometimes be more expensive than a resident making a move to assisted living. And then this isn't on there, but I've also seen with some companies that there's just some challenging with staffing. So that next point of who will manage this care is something that comes up quite often as well. There are definitely times when caregivers get sick or they can't come in for the day, and then you are left with having to manage, okay, who's gonna help my parent or my loved one today? I guess it's gonna be me. I guess I'll be taking, work off, or I'll be scrambling at the last second to try and figure out who is gonna help my loved one for today. Some residents have expressed that they don't like having a home care aide come into their space and just be there with them. Some people feel that it's an invasion of their personal space and that they lose some of their privacy and their independence when that happens. And then something that we also see typically is, or not typically, but sometimes we see that residents with a home care aide can become more isolated. So as opposed to moving to an area where residents are maybe out and about or engaging with each other, having a home care aide come to a resident within their home doesn't necessarily mean that that resident is then engaging with their peers or getting out and engaging in activities, or that they're being encouraged to get out there and enjoy other people's company. There's always the option to move in with the kids. Some families have the time and the capacity to do that. And some families do not have the time and capacity to do that. And what I typically tell families is think through some of the challenges that may come along with having your loved one move into you to become their caregiver full time. You may have a very busy lifestyle. You may be balancing kids or grandkids or your own work or vacations or managing your own household. And it definitely would be a change in pace to take on caregiving for someone else and having someone move into you. It also, going back to that piece about the peer-to-peer interactions, it also can be very isolating for an older individual to move back in with their kids or family members and not have peers to interact with on a daily basis. Something that I hear residents at Porter Hills say all the time is how much they love all of the things that are going on at Porter Hills. Especially recently, a lot of our independent living activities have reopened, the fitness center and the pool. There are different groups going on and music opportunities. And I hear again and again how excited our residents get to see their friends and neighbors at these things and to do life together with people who are in similar life circumstances as them. And just the importance of that. So that would be very different moving back in with your kids. You wouldn't have that same peer-to-peer interaction as you would living in a community necessarily. And then there's always the challenge of navigating the tricky dynamics of the caregiver role versus the parent-child role. So it would be tricky, right? You'd be changing hats a little bit, going from I'm someone's child or niece or nephew or friend to, okay, I'm their caregiver. And I might have to have some hard conversations with them. And I might have to talk with them about challenging things. And I might have to help them take a shower. I might have to help them get dressed. And so moving in with your kids, you would have to start navigating some of those tricky dynamics. So the next part of our presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about the assisted living side of the continuum and what that would look like as an option for your loved one. So I want to introduce Mariah Voss, who is our residential living manager, and she's going to talk about that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mariah. So I'm the residential living manager, which means that I oversee our catered living as well as our memory care and home for the aged, which also includes our village center area downstairs. Catered living is assisted living. However, we cater to the needs of those who live here. And we are built around a social model. And what that means is rather than a medical model, which is more of your skilled nursing, it's more institutionalized. You won't see lights in the hallways. You won't see machines that lift people in and out of beds because it's a social model, which means that our employees, their number one job is to build relationships with the residents who live here so that we can care for them the best that we can and meet all of their needs. Residents who live within our catered living, they have the freedom from worry about meal preps, medications, doctor visits, and home maintenance. And we have a main dining room where they can have all of their meals. Each household that our catered living is broken up into has a kitchenette where they can have snacks, they can cook, they can bake with their team members. All medications are administered from our team, and we also have a clinical support team with nurses that are here around the clock that work with our a physician from Spectrum Medical Group that also comes within the clinic 4 days a week. While residents live within catered living, like I said, they create those relationships with our team members. And what that means is our team members take the time to have that one-on-one opportunity to understand where the resident comes from, what they enjoy doing, what they don't like doing, what time of day do they like to wake up, or what time do they prefer to go to dinner. This isn't a community where you have to be in the dining room at 7 a.m. in order to receive breakfast. You wake up and enjoy your day and go about it just like you would at home, but now you have the assistance from your caregivers to help you do so. We do have staff here 24/7. That would be our direct care employees, our med techs, and also our nursing team. Myself, when a new resident moves in, just prior, I meet with them to help create a personalized plan for each resident, just so by the time that you would arrive, my team is already aware on who you are, what you're able to do, and how we can meet your needs. That care plan is not set in stone, and it can change based on your needs. And it's also always available for the team to look back on. So they know, oh, this person likes to sleep until 9 a.m., or maybe they prefer a glass of wine after dinner. That personalized plan is made for each person in order to really create a strong quality of life. So the best way to really create a very strong quality of life is to hit on the 6 domains of well-being. So we've really come together and strategize during COVID on how we can still continue to meet these 6 areas. So for emotional, that is that support network, and that has been more crucial than ever throughout COVID, as residents have gone through a time of not being able to see their neighbors or their families in the beginning. So our team members became their family, and spending that one-on-one time really helps grow that emotional well-being for each resident. Spiritual, we have chaplains that are visiting the residents as often as possible. We have non-denominational church services that are being aired on our televisions throughout the week. When we aren't in a pandemic, we have buses that are transportation that will help get residents to church services off campus. Socially, another thing that has become more apparent than I think any of us ever expected throughout COVID is how important the social well-being is for seniors. Our main dining room is open, and the impact that just a shared meal can have on somebody's well-being is crucial. So we understand that importance, and we try to do as many group activities as possible. We invite families and friends to join us. Our staff are trained to come up with their own ideas for engagement, and we provide the tools so they can do spontaneous activities with all of the residents. Physically, we have workout classes, we have the pool, We have walking groups. We recently started our exercise classes back up, and people are thrilled. We have a fitness specialist that can go around and meet with residents individually to help them with specific exercises that they can do in their apartments, just to help build strength. We have, we do a lot of presentations. We have a wellness guide that schedules speakers to come in, and we also have lecture series that are aired throughout the week that are completely resident led, meaning they plan it, they ask us to put it in the calendar, and residents can turn their TV and have a educational history session if they'd like. And an occupational, this is also so important because it gives people a purpose. One thing that I hear so often from residents that are retired, they say they could almost continue working because it gives them a purpose to wake up every day. So what we found is volunteering is wonderful for these folks. Throughout COVID, we've been able to utilize a lot of our residents who wanted a job, and they are able to volunteer and help with tent visits with residents and families. They've been helping schedule. They help us organize the library. They enjoy having a purpose, and so many of them have even taken on the opportunity of meeting one-on-one with residents who may not have family members in the area, just so they can continue that communication and that social well-being that's so important. So COVID, the number one topic right now, and the thing that is probably most asked about by families and residents. So what is Porter Hills doing with COVID and its restrictions right now within the assisted living? Well, our assisted living is under a home for the aged license, which means that we have regulations that we need to follow through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. With that being said, we are able to do weekly tent visits for all residents in the assisted living. So every resident can see their family every single week. We also have weekly well-being indoor visits with a physician's order. As residents may have declined while throughout COVID due to not being able to see their families and the social aspect, physicians have been able to write orders for residents to be able to also see their families an additional time indoor. Anyone who is on hospice also gets indoor visits with their families. And prior to the ability to do visits, we are still doing daily FaceTimes. We do window visits. Our team members are given the tools to be able to FaceTime families all throughout the day. And we also have areas separated for residents to do those window visits with their family members, whether it's in their apartment or at an exterior window. And lastly, like I said, group activities and social dining has resumed, and the morale in the building has grown exponentially, and it's been wonderful. And lastly, myself and the 2 other managers in catered living are sending weekly information to families with updates on COVID, what the community is doing, and also photos so you can see the engagement that your loved ones are taking part in. So the catered living team and how it's broken down. We have resident assistants. Those are the team members that you see in the hallways providing that direct resident care. They are the ones helping your loved ones get dressed, maybe take a shower, paint their nails, take them to the dining room, and spend that one-on-one time with them. Then we have our clinical specialists. Our clinical specialists are LPNs or RNs. They are here 24/7, as well as our resident assistants. They manage all of the medical concerns and the needs, and they also provide the communication between families and physicians. Like I said, we have a physician on campus 4 days a week, and our clinical specialists work one-on-one with them to make sure that we are doing everything we can to medically meet the needs of the residents. We also have our med techs. Our med techs are also here 24/7, and they are the ones that administer medications. So our RAs and our med techs are really our eyes and ears for each resident. They inform us if they see something different. They let us know if there's maybe adverse effects of a medication or if a resident seems to be having a decline. So we can work together to build or add on to their care plan, work with the physician, and also talk to the family about next steps that we can do. And lastly is our neighborhood guides. We have 2 neighborhood guides who oversee the catered living and memory care. They are the liaison between the resident and the family. They are the ones that families contact daily for updates on their family members. They guide residents through transitions. When a new resident moves in, they are introducing them to their neighbors and the team members that will be helping them out, giving them an introduction to catered living, and also guiding them through their next steps if they started in catered living and eventually needed to move to memory care. They gain insight into each resident's life through that one-on-one time, and they really do relieve the kids from their role of a caregiver. So that way the kids can enjoy spending time with their parents. That's probably one thing we've heard the most. When a resident moves in here, there's such a transition that family members see because we promote so much independence with the residents that family members get to have that relationship back. They get to take mom or dad out to the movies or to go shopping while we make sure that your mom and dad is being taken care of well, getting their medications and being taken care of in the best of their ability while still promoting as much independence. So what's included in catered living? So catered living, 3 meals a day, snacks, beverages, whichever they prefer, medication monitoring and assistance. All of the staff are here 24/7 between the RAs, med techs, and clinical specialists. We have a physician on site. When a new resident moves in, they have the choice to sign on with our physician or keep their own outside doctor. If you choose to sign on with our physician, the ease of going to appointments becomes much nicer as the physician comes to the resident. They meet them in their apartment for their appointments. It's also nice to be able to share communication with the physician that way. We usually get much quicker results with that as well. There's opportunities for engagement, whether it's music, lifelong learning, interaction with the daycare within the building, so many social events, themed dinners, trips. There's always something going on. We have team members that assist with that personal care. We have a housekeeping team that comes in to clean the apartments every single week, and we can also do their laundry and their linens. And then coordination with that outside ancillary services, and transportation to appointments. Your neighborhood guides can help schedule appointments for residents that need to go out for something that can't be seen here or a possible surgery. And then, of course, all utilities are included. So I want to introduce you to a resident who has truly gone through the continuum here at Porter Hills. So this is Elaine. Elaine started with us a few years ago. She moved into the Garden Apartments, which is a fully independent area of the community. In the position I had at that point, I was able to work a lot with Elaine and go on fun events with her. Throughout my time, I was starting to notice that Elaine could probably really benefit from some extra assistance. After some time in communication with her and her family, we decided that a move to catered living would be a great idea. So Elaine moved to catered living, and she only increased her socialization. She had meals with people. She had daily interaction with team members. She excelled. She was doing everything she could. She was even helping with the kids downstairs. She was participating in engagement. She took on the role of introducing residents to other residents, kind of like a mentor. But even so, over time, we started to see that Elaine, she needed even more assistance as her memory started to decline. So Elaine moved into our Harmony Hall. Harmony Hall is one of our memory care areas. It is a secured hallway that has its own dining room, its own courtyard, and separate apartments. Elaine moved into Harmony and she has been there ever since, and she has truly flourished more than we probably could have ever imagined. She's very active. She helps other residents. She plays the piano for them. She reads to other residents. In this photo you see there are kids from our Generations program that come up, and she helps them color. She used to read to them. She goes on walks with them in the courtyard that's attached to Harmony Hall. She was given a purpose through each of her transitions throughout the community. Although she moved, she continued to grow. And that is exactly the point of the continuum, is you're not necessarily moving because you need more help. You're moving so we can continue to promote independence with you and help you with those small tasks that give you more time to excel in certain areas of your life.
So when you listen to this information and you start thinking about, what are the next steps, what we encourage you to do is really begin your research. So participating in today's webinar is one way to do that. But we encourage you to look at all options, especially the full continuum of care communities. And Mariah's story about Elaine is a really wonderful example of the benefits of that full continuum, because Elaine did not need to leave Porter Hills, her home. She's been able to stay right here, and we've been able to support her through her changing health needs. We also encourage you to talk to loved ones. Reach out if you're doing this research on behalf of a parent or your parents or another relative. Bring them into the conversation. These kinds of changes are difficult for everyone involved. And so ask for help from your parent in making these decisions. Say, I don't want to make this decision for you. We need to have this conversation together. Now, as Mariah was saying when she was talking about the restrictions that we do have in the care areas of our building because of COVID, one of those restrictions is that we cannot do on-site in-person appointments. What we've been doing for many months now are virtual tours. So our team is able to be on our phone or our computer and talk with you live and show you around the community. We also are able to do home visits. If that's something that you would be comfortable with, we would be happy to come out and talk with you in your home about, what would this look like for you at Porter Hills. So really we view, all of us do, as that we're here to help guide you through this process. There's a lot to learn. I'm sure there's a lot of questions that you have, and we want to be available to you for that. And so speaking of questions, we do have some questions here. So let's take a look at these and then we'll figure out who is the best person to answer them. So the first question says, my mom wants to stay home until she has to move in. What's the harm in waiting until she needs more help than I can give? So I don't know, Mariah or Caitlin, either one of you.
We could probably both answer. I can start. What I have seen happen again and again with residents is when they wait and they put off a move or they put off getting more care into the home, that's when we typically see emergencies happen. That's when we typically see a resident have a really bad fall because they're not getting the level of care that they need. And then what happens typically when they fall is they go to the emergency room and they stay in the hospital for a while, and then they go to rehab. And then maybe after that, then we have to have the conversation of what are we going to do with your loved one? Where are they going to go? Because they can't go home. They're not strong enough anymore to go home. And then the trouble with that situation, I think, is it takes the decision-making process away from the resident, and it turns into, you can't go home, so we what do we have to go somewhere else and we have to figure out a different plan. Whereas if you were to be a part of that conversation before you waited until it was too late, essentially, then your loved one gets to make a decision and gets to outline what they want to be their next steps for care. And so I just think that process of them leading the way and them being the decision maker is a really beautiful way to go about it. But if you wait if you wait too long, that might not be an option anymore.
Excellent. So the next question is, it still seems safer to stay at home until COVID is done being an issue. Can't we join the list and then wait until it's safer? So I can answer that. I mean, yes, you can. And we do understand that some people feel like that might be a better option. Although I think, as Mariah could attest, I mean, Porter Hills has not had any outbreaks of COVID. Have we had some positives over the past 7 months? Yes, we have, but not what you would define as an outbreak. We have done, I would say, a remarkable job of keeping our residents safe, our staff safe. The staff is screened every morning when they come to work. They're screened throughout the day. We've done a lot of testing, actual COVID testing of both staff and residents. In fact, shore to shore, meaning the west side of the state, Porter Hills communities, and the UMRC communities on the east side of the state, we've done over 13,000 COVID tests between staff and residents. So we are, we're doing everything that we can. I don't know, Mariah, if you want to say anything else about that.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on the fact that our staff, they have to wear the proper PPE at all times going in and out of residence rooms. They get screened every time, the beginning of their shift, and then they also get screened midway through their shift. We also check on the residents' oxygen and temperatures twice a day. Because we are a licensed community, we have regulations that we need to follow for the state of Michigan, which helps keep us so safe. I truly believe I am safer in this building than I am at any grocery store, solely because of our cleaning protocols, the way we have to treat every incident or any cough or sneeze that we hear. It's very safe in here, and all departments handle every situation at the highest level.
Can I add something to that? I think we all know that COVID may not be going anywhere anytime soon, and we have no way to anticipate when it's going to be over. And so we feel kind of so many things we put on hold right now because of COVID, but the reality is that life keeps going for people and for our residents here. And residents, and quite frankly, continue to age and continue to need more assistance regardless of COVID. So I would really encourage residents and their loved ones to really think of it from that perspective. It's not ideal that we have visitor restrictions. I think we could all agree that we don't want them to be there anymore. But the reality is that you still might need care, and you might need that care sometime soon during COVID. And so I think we're trying, and Mariah did a really good job at outlining what we're doing to keep our residents safe, but also how we are ensuring that our residents are still connecting with their loved ones during COVID. So I would just add that to that.
Wonderful. All right, so I think there's one more slide that shows our contact information. As I said, we are able to do virtual tours with you, and we have Joy's name and phone number up on the screen. We would love to talk with you more and share information about what we have to offer at Porter Hills Village. So Caitlin, Mariah, thank you both so much for all the information today. This session has been recorded, and we will send it out to our participants. So thank you so much for being with us today. Take care.